Stifle the how and focus on your what and why? How crazy is that? It's actually not as crazy as you might think. I'll be right back. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. Stifle the how and focus on what you want and why you want it. Now, this isn't just a half-baked idea. This would be like your major definite purpose or burning desire in a variety of different areas. One of the things we do in the focal point world is we use something called a diamond map. And in the diamond map, we have 4 key areas. So what we would encourage you to do is to have several goals in each one of those quadrants. So the first one would be health and fitness. Next one would be relationships, both personally and professional. And the next one over to the right of that would be career, your vocation. And then the last of the 4 would be your financial. So if you had some crazy big, hairy, audacious goals in those areas that you really, really wanted to go after, and were able to give yourself permission to forget about focusing on the how, if this is new to you, you might want to consider doing it, because it's actually a very powerful way to make stuff happen. And why I'm saying that is from experience. Along the way in my journey, I have had several mentors that provided me with that mindset, that attitude, that decide what it is you want and then focus on that and look at solutions and ways to make that happen. So you shift your thinking from being problem-oriented to being more solution-oriented and imagining yourself with the ideal end result in mind. I have a few memes that I came across over the last little bit, and want to bring one of them up right now. Here's one by Mark Victor Hansen, and here he says, your belief determines your action, and your action determines your results, but first you have to believe. So the believe idea comes down to thoughts, ideas. What is it you really, really want, and why do you want it? That's your mission and purpose. In my opinion, it's a very powerful one. Mark Victor Hansen is co-author and partner with Jack Canfield in that record-breaking publishing record in and around Chicken Soup for the Soul. People thought they were crazy when they said they were going to, I think it was 1 billion books they wanted to have published. I don't think they've reached that yet, but they're well on their way. And it all started out with an idea. They really know what they wanted, and they really know why they wanted it, and they've created ways to make it happen. Jack Canfield's got an interesting story of his own, one where he talks about, I believe he was working for W. Clement Stone at the time, and he would challenge Jack to set a big, hairy, audacious goal. So I believe he was making about $4,000 or $5,000 a year, and the goal was to earn $100,000 in 12 months, which he'd never done before. So he worked on that and focused on the end result, and he invented a way along the way to actually make that happen. And what did he do? Well, he focused on the end result he wanted. He wanted to have that $100,000 milestone come to fruition. So he did some things like created a check, put it on the ceiling so he could see it when he woke up in the morning, and he was constantly focused on that. And he got creative ideas on ways to make that happen. And as the story goes, apparently he didn't make the $100,000, but he still wasn't disappointed because he made more money than he's ever made in his lifetime by setting that big, hairy, audacious goal at the time. Now, that was a few decades ago. Since that time, he's converted himself into a millionaire a number of times over, and he's had an influence of people around the world. He's a global author and speaker. I'm a bit of a fan of Jack Canfield. That's kind of why I know his story. It's pretty fascinating, actually. There's a couple of other slides I'd like to show you. Just let me click on them. This is a Mark Twain quote that kind of does the same sort of thing from a different point of view. You cannot trust your eyes if your imagination is out of focus. Isn't that brilliant? I think it's brilliant. And I have a personal story about what and why that I'll share with you as well. And my story is more along the lines of testing out the concept when I first really got into introduced really to the, if you know what you want and why you want it, and stifle the how, then you can move towards your end results much quicker and much easier. Doesn't mean that every time I set a goal and use that philosophy that I got absolutely everything I wanted along the way. But what I did do is I learned and became wiser and learned that some of the things I thought I wanted turned out isn't what I really wanted. So I got to change the vision, got to meet some new people. So how this showed up for me is in the early 90s, I wanted to start a business, and I wanted to start it in a different sort of way. And that was without the traditional capital. And I wanted to see if we could make it happen. So one of the things that I did to help me start that business was created a networking group called the Winter Circle Networking Breakfast. And what that was all about was helping others get connected to other people for fun and profit. So we ran that for 5 years. And in that 5-year period, I established the business I have now, which is actually called PG Squared. And under that umbrella is a business coaching, training, facilitation company that all came from knowing what I wanted and why I wanted it. And one of the little nuggets within that own journey of knowing what I wanted and why I wanted in terms of starting a business was I became a representative for an oil and gas software tool. And the enterprise systems out in the oil patch didn't want to have external software that wasn't vetted installed on their enterprise systems anymore, fear of viruses and malware, those sort of things. So we needed to have a computer. So I wanted to see how this, if you know what you want and why you want it, would work in this example. So I set a goal, a target to get a laptop computer for free. And I need to have a spreadsheet, a really good screen, a word processor. And again, my budget was $0 for this exercise. And so I went on my way and I met different people, invited them to my networking event, and did my ask for a computer. And lo and behold, I got one. At least I had one offered up. And the offer up was the individual liked the idea of what I was doing and said I could use his when he didn't need it. So I hadn't put in my vision that I needed it 24/7 or at least 5 days a week, 24/7. And that was where the gap was, because I could only use it in the evening because he needed it in the daytime. But it was very generous of him to offer that up. And it gave me a deeper belief in, if you know what you want and why you want it and stifle the how, you can make more things happen. Think of Walt Disney and the Disney worlds and the Disneylands that are out there. It kind of started with the same principle. People laughed at him too. Oh, and by the way, they laughed at me. Yeah, many did. They thought I was crazy, actually. Anyway, I continued on my journey to test this hypothesis out. And as a result of that, what ended up happening, I met some other people, learned some new things, and I refined my ask. So this time now I was asking for a computer with a really good screen, word processor, spreadsheet, and no budget for free. And I needed it. And I need to have access to it 24/7. And kept putting that message out there, asking people to help. And again, I was getting laughed at many times. And other times, though, people would say, well, that's pretty interesting. I think I know somebody who has one. So that led me to getting one, and I got one, and I could have it for 24/7, 365 days a year forever. The only challenge was the software that I needed it for ran in a Windows environment, and this was a DOS system, so that didn't work. So what I learned from that process was that I needed to refine the vision, to be more specific in my ask, my request, what I was looking for. So going back to Mark Twain's quote, you cannot trust your eyes if your imagination is out of focus. So I hadn't imagined it clearly enough. So I got clarity, changed the clarity. And as a result of that, I changed the vision. And the vision now became 24/7 free word processor, spreadsheet. And I went on my way doing the networking for my business and looking for opportunities and other sort of things. And people came into my life that were amazing. So in running this Winter Circle networking breakfast, that caused somebody to reach out to me, and they wanted to amalgamate and do a project together. So I did that. I invited and participated in that. I invited other people into it, and I participated in it. And as a result of participating in that event, it was a Thursday evening and a Friday morning. In the evening, we facilitated a networking process. And in that networking event that we had, I met a whole bunch of great people added to my own network that we were doing on a monthly basis. And I met a mentor and a really good friend, and we became roommates. And he became the provider of the ideal end result computer that I was looking for, because after we built the relationship, a few weeks later, he gave me a call. I think it was a few weeks later, gave me a call and said, hey, you know that computer you're looking for? He says, I think I've got one. But the only caveat is that when I phone you and ask you for it back, I need to have it. So lo and behold, persistence paid off. And clarity of what it is we're trying to attempt to become, do, or have. That's really critical. So going back to Mark Twain again, you cannot trust your eyes if your imagination is out of focus. So as I got laser focused, it started to show up for me. So if you know what you want and why you want it and stifle the how, you can almost make anything happen. And if you don't, you become a better person or a smarter person, wiser person. There's nothing, you'll gain more, I guess is really what I'm attempting to say, by doing that than any other way that I've been introduced to. And these images came up into my experience, my life in the last little bit, and I wanted to share them out there. A negative mind will never allow you to have a positive life. So if you know what you want and why you want it, and stifle the how, often the how is a negative mind. It's saying, wow, you've never done that. How can you do that before? You're crazy. Don't try to overhaul. Let me share the screens that I'm reading here. Hang on. Add that here. Don't try to overhaul your life overnight. Instead, focus on making one small change at a time. Over time, those small changes will add up to a big transformation, and don't give up. Now, can you read it in there? There is some how in there, and how is an important part of the puzzle. You can't just sit in a room and think about what it is you want to do. You actually need to take action and act upon it, as I did in getting the computer and testing out that hypothesis as to whether it would actually work. If you know what you want it and why you want it, could you invent the how? And my experience is, yes, you can. And how is really an important part of it. If you imagine thinking about your what and why, and it's initially, maybe it's not as a big, large, clear vision or emotionally charged, but the more you think about it and the more you see yourself with it, achieving it, having it, the feelings show up. And if you can get into the emotional state with this, then it moves you to a creative, intuitive solutions, which gives you the insights to ask questions of other people, to reach out to people maybe that you hadn't thought of before. All of that stuff starts to show up in your life. It does if you do it, at least, anyway. The last one I wanted to share in and around what we do at Focal Point and in the coaching space is kind of what Gary Vaynerchuk's talking about here. He's suggesting that you, hang on, I'm just navigating here we go. Don't train for skill, train for mindset. So if you follow him and look at what he's done, everything he's done has been a mindset towards an outcome, a vision, a goal. There was a fellow who was still being talked about today because he has this great book that he wrote. It's called Think and Grow Rich. And in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about having a major definite purpose and a burning desire. Essentially, that's really what I'm talking about here today. I'm just trying to modernize it a little bit and using some more relevant and current memes and those sort of things. So I challenge you to decide what it is you want, the what and your why, and stifle the how and start thinking about the possibilities of coming up with your what and why and inventing the how along the way. You'll come up with things and ideas that you've never, ever thought of before. So I challenge you to do this. I have a few people that have popped in. I want to recognize who's here. Oh, it's Tim Lord. He calls me the professor. There's the Lord squared. Tim Lord and his dad. What a great picture. Thanks, Tim. And Kellen Ann. Now, here is a person that I know that has, in her own way, she's living the knowing what you want and why you want it. And she's made it happen. So she's moved out of California and she's living in her happy place. And I've been told it's the southern part of the U.S. I'm in Canada. I see it as the east, but what do I know? I'm not down in Georgia. So Georgia's in the south part. That's where Kellen lives. She has an amazing story. If you ever get a chance to talk to her. Kellen Ann. Cards that wow. And hey, I know this guy too. Joe is, I think it's 3 days into his grandfathership. Although I think he wants to be called grandpa. And what does he says? He's saying the great story, set your goal and then work to get it. Thinking the how first can bog you down. Boy, is that ever true. Even a how you have to be open to adjusting and changing how to do it to reach out, to reach your goal. Boy, that's absolutely true. Joe, you remind me of a parachute. Well, not you don't, but the idea is a parachute works best when it's open, particularly when you're jumping out of an airplane or a high place. So have an open mind when you're challenging yourself to give this, know what you want and why you want it, a try, and stifle the how. Have an open mind. If you do, you'll be pleasantly surprised. If you liked what you heard today, share this out with your tribe, your peeps, your people, your community, however you like to address them. If you're watching this on the replay, please say hashtag replay. And if you know or would like to be a guest on the Business Renovator and share your message, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and set up a time for when we could make that happen. Last thing I want to share with you before we go into the Labor Day weekend, at least in North America, Canada and the US for sure, is one little nugget that I got from a mentor many decades ago. And I want you to think about you, as it says in this wonderful you. I want you to think of yourself as wonderful because you truly are. You are unique and you are truly wonderful. Thank you for listening live. And if you're listening to this on a replay, I appreciate it. And if you share it out, that would be fantastic. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.